All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we are now going to preview the play-in games tonight. We got the Hawks and the Heat tonight, and then we have the Grizzlies and the Mavericks. And these are elimination games. Whoever wins these games moves on to the playoffs, even though I still would pair this up with the playoffs. But again, it's a separate thing. It's a separate thing. It's what gets you into the real deal. So the first game will be on. That's the Heat and the Hawks. That'll be on at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. That'll be a TNT vehicle. And then the Mavericks Grizzlies game will be on ESPN. And that'll be on at 9:30. Or it'll be on whenever the first game ends. The Hawks right now are 1-point favorites over the Heat. The Grizzlies are 6-point favorites over the Mavericks. The Hawks, they lost to the Magic. The Heat, they knocked off the Bulls. The Grizzlies, they lost that tough game to the Warriors by the heroics of Steph Curry. And the Mavericks, they played really well against the Kings. And they're coming in with a lot of confidence. So, to talk about the first game. So, I went against Eric Spoelstra when it came to the Heat. Because the Bulls, I liked how the Bulls have been playing. They've been playing a lot better. And, I just... That's kind of where I went with that. Kind of disrespected the Heat a little bit. Because, Eric Spoelstra is one of the best coaches in the league still. The Heat right now, they're not as loaded as they have been in years past, right? Now, some of the guys that are on the team, they've been to the NBA Finals, and they still have good players. But, I also was like, the Bulls are due for a play-in win against the Heat. Why don't we pick them? It's not the right choice. Here, I'm not going to make that same mistake twice when it comes to the Heat. I will take them in this game, although, it's going to be tough because you got to give respect to the Hawks. You got to give respect to Trae Young because he could take over a game by himself. And, this game's going to be a little bit different. Are the Heat going to jump out to this big lead like they had against the Bulls? Because that's what the two teams that won in the play-in, they jumped out. What happened? They jumped out to these big leads. And, things maybe got a little bit closer in the second half, but, the games are never in jeopardy for the Heat or the Mavericks. They were able to hold on and win because they built up these huge leads that were tough to overcome. To kind of take a look at more into this game, so the Heat have won 5 of their last 6 road games. The Hawks, on the other hand, they've struggled with, they're dealing with some injuries. And I'm curious to see what the future holds for the Hawks. Again, this is a team that's, hasn't really, made a run in quite some time. I know Trae Young, he's been part of trade rumors. Right? I don't know if they would trade him. But I'm curious to see what happens if they were to lose this game. Now, whoever does win this game, let's be honest. They're going to be playing the Cavs. Probably going to get swept. So, it's not like I expect these teams to pull off an upset. Now, if the Heat had Jimmy Butler, well, we've seen Jimmy Butler and the Heat pull off an upset, against the Bucks, a few years ago. But it's not going to happen here. Tyler Hero was very good in the game against the Bulls. He finished with 38 points. Bam Adebayo had a good game with the double-double. So, they're going to get their numbers. Trae Young in the game against the Magic the other night, he had 28 points. So I expect him to have a big game as well. And the Hawks are home. So that also benefits them as well. But, yeah, I'm leaning towards the Heat. I'm going to take the Heat in this game. I'm not going to make the same mistake twice. Now, what's going to end up happening is the Hawks are going to end up winning. Like, Trae Young will have like 45 points, and, they'll end up winning the game. But, yeah, I'm going to lean towards the Heat. I think the Heat are the better team in this spot. I mean, obviously they aren't a great team, but, again, the teams in the Eastern Conference that are in the play-in, other than, I guess, other than the Magic, who dealt with injuries, and had they not have had injuries to their best players, they probably would have finished with a better record. But yeah, the teams in the play-in are not great in the Eastern Conference. So yeah, I'm leaning towards the Heat in this spot. I mean, do I say it's going to be a close game? Because I know I said it was going to be a close game when the Heat were playing the Bulls, and it really wasn't close. But yeah, I think the Heat win, and they move on. That's what I'm going with. That's my pick. Now the second game, we got the Mavericks and the Grizzlies. Now, John Morant got hurt in the game against the Warriors. Injured his ankle. He missed Thursday's practice. He's a game time decision as of right now. My gut feeling is he's going to play. The season's on the line. He's got to play in this game. But having said that, look, the Grizzlies, they fired their coach, but right before the playoffs. All right, and I didn't talk about this when we recapped the game earlier in the week, but the Grizzlies had a 5-second violation when they were trying to inbound the ball late. And we were talking about this in our production meeting. That doesn't happen when you have an experienced head coach. Right? I mean, maybe it does. But the Grizzlies right now, they have an interim head coach. All right, the Mavericks have Jason Kidd. And I think Jason Kidd is decent, right, as a head coach. Is that fair to say? So, and the Mavericks, they played really well the other night. Now, this is going to be, again, this game is going to be different. All right, the Grizzlies have more talent. Right? They've been the better team. But I think the Mavericks are coming in with a different kind of confidence. Anthony Davis played well the other night. They got the size that matches up well against the Grizzlies. And I think they're coming in motivated. I think with them having a head coach, the energy they were coming out with the other night, I think they could pull it off here. I think they pull it off, get the win, they move on, and they play the Thunder. And look, I did pick the Kings the other night. I was kind of pulling for the Mavericks to win. Because, again, I just feel bad for the fans and, everything that's happened with the Lucas stuff. I'm going to take the Mavericks. I'm going to take the Mavericks. Now, if John Moran doesn't play, that only betters their chances of winning. And, Desmond Bane had a good game the other night. The Grizzlies still have, good players on this team. I think Edey also had a good game the other night as well. So, yeah, I mean, the Grizzlies win. Yeah, it is what it is. Yeah, Edey had 14 points and 17 rebounds. So, but yeah, like the Mavericks have some big dudes on their team. And they're as healthy as they're going to be. Klay Thompson, he had a good game the other night. He's going to play a big role. Anthony Davis, obviously. So, yeah, I'm leaning towards the Mavericks here to get into the playoffs. And we'll see what happens when they play the Thunder. Well, I think we all kind of know what's going to happen anyways. But if it does happen, that will buy the Mavericks more time. That'll buy Nico Harrison more time. Because they said they packed for 8 days. So they are expecting to make the playoffs. And we will see if that happens. So I'm taking the Heat tonight, and I'm taking the Mavericks tonight. Again, we're still waiting on the status of John Morant. If he doesn't play, that is a huge blow to the Grizzlies. They need him in this game. But we will see. We will see. But let me know what you guys think about the games tonight. Who do you think wins? Let me know in the comments. So before we go to break, just want to remind you guys once again to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to hit that super chat button in the chat if you want to see me acknowledge any thought or comment you may have throughout the live broadcast. Makes the show more lively, more entertaining. Between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers, we appreciate your guys' viewership each and every day. So any contribution you can make to the show means the world to us as we put out content for you guys each and every day. And also the other way to help out the show is by going to the link at the bottom of the show segment on the ticker, GSMCPodcast.net. That is GSMCPodcast.net. So, when we come back from our next break, we will continue talking about the NBA. We will talk about the playoffs. I will give you my predictions for the playoffs. Okay? Who is going to move on in the first round, the second round? We get to the conference finals. Who do I have in the conference finals? And who gets into the NBA finals and who wins the NBA finals? We are going to get into all that when we come back from our next break. So, with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast.